3 hours after we buried my brother, my husband sat across from me at our kitchen counter in his funeral suit and slid divorce papers toward me like they were nothing. Rain had soaked through his coat. He loosened his tie slowly, the way a man does when he finally feels comfortable, and said the words that dismantled the last thing I believed about my marriage: "I'm leaving you for your brother's wife." I waited for something human to move across his face. Regret, embarrassment, anything. There was nothing. He pushed the papers closer and said quietly, "Just put your name on them, Claire. It'll be cleaner for everyone." My brother Ethan had been gone for less than 4 hours. He died in a highway accident outside Milwaukee, 43 years old. Disciplined, deliberate, the kind of man who paid strangers' medical bills quietly and remembered every employee's name. He built Hawthorne Logistics from 3 trucks and a rented lot into one of the most respected freight operations in the Midwest. And the man he trusted with all of it, besides me, was already planning to take his place. My husband, Marcus. At the service, Marcus had performed grief beautifully. His hand on my back, his voice low, his expression carefully neutral. But looking back now, I can see where his attention actually went. Toward Elise, Ethan's widow. Composed, polished, a black dress that looked chosen rather than grabbed. Her tears had a kind of precision I didn't notice then. I hated myself for the suspicion. Now I know I was right to feel it. When Marcus told me he intended to be with Elise, I asked the only question that mattered. How long? He took a slow sip of bourbon before answering. A while. No shame in it, no apology. Just patience. Like a man who had been waiting for the right moment to make a move he'd already committed to. Then he said the sentence I will carry, with me forever. You were never built for the life I want. That should have unraveled me. Instead, something in me went very still, because I suddenly remembered the voicemail Ethan had left me 2 nights before he died. I still hadn't played it. Marcus pushed the papers closer. Let's not delay this. I looked down at the documents, waived assets, clean separation. Every page already prepared, which meant he had arranged this before Ethan's accident. Before that, one realization rewired everything. He was expecting tears, maybe pleading, definitely chaos. What he got was silence. I picked up the pen and signed. For the first time that evening, he looked genuinely startled. That's it? He asked. I looked at him steadily. You seem like you've been waiting to go. 40 minutes later, he was gone, a single suitcase in his trunk. The moment his headlights disappeared from the driveway, I pressed play on Ethan's voicemail. There was a long pause before his voice came through. Claire, if you're hearing this, something happened before I got the chance to say this myself. My chest locked up immediately. Then, quietly, don't trust anyone until David Mercer reads the will. I barely slept for the next several weeks, not because I missed Marcus. Once the shock dissolved, every dismissed warning sign came flooding back in the dark. The late nights, the new confidence he'd never earned, the way Elise held his gaze. A beat too long across dinner tables. It all assembled itself into something obvious I had refused to see. Meanwhile, Marcus and Elise abandoned discretion almost immediately. Photos surfaced online within days of the funeral. Restaurant dinners, weekend escapes, fireside photographs of 2 people beginning what they clearly considered a reward. In one picture, Marcus was wearing Ethan's cashmere coat. That almost undid me. Not because he looked happy, because my brother had trusted him completely. A week later, I returned to Hawthorne Logistics headquarters in downtown Chicago. The moment I stepped onto the executive floor, conversations stopped mid-sentence. Everyone already knew. Ethan's assistant, Jenna, reached me first, arms out. You need to understand what's been happening, she said quietly against my shoulder. Marcus had taken over Ethan's office, sitting at his desk, leading meetings, speaking in the plural about the company's future. Elise had been coming in too, moving through the building like someone learning the floor plan of a house she planned to redecorate. When I walked in and found Marcus behind Ethan's desk wearing Ethan's coat, something in me went permanently cold. What are you doing? I asked quietly. Working, he said, casual as if the question were strange. Someone has to hold things. Steady? You're in regional sales. He leaned back in my dead brother's chair. Titles have a way of shifting. Then he said the thing that told me the whole plan. Elise inherited everything anyway. There it was. The architecture of it, plain and complete. I asked one careful question. Did Ethan know about the two of you before he died? Marcus's face moved for half a second, not guilt, fear. Then the office door opened and David Mercer stepped inside. Ethan's attorney, tall, silver-haired, carrying the particular calm of someone who has seen people's worst behavior and stopped being surprised by it. He looked at Marcus. "I need a few minutes with Claire." Marcus left reluctantly, like a man who suspects the room will look different when he's allowed back in. The moment the door closed, David placed a sealed envelope on the desk. "Your brother made significant revisions to his estate before he died," he said carefully. "He asked me to hold everything for 30 days. Why 30 days? David met my eyes directly. "Because Ethan believed that people show you exactly who they are when they're convinced they've already won. That month was a kind of exposure." Marcus stopped being careful. He and Elise entertained at Ethan's house. He removed Ethan's personal photographs from the office walls and replaced them with nothing, which was somehow worse. He spoke about the company in the future tense, from ownership. But greed has always made people imprecise, and Ethan had been preparing quietly for longer than any of us understood. The morning of the will reading, there were reporters outside the building. Word about Ethan's estate had moved through Chicago, business circles the way certain news always does. When I entered the conference room, Marcus looked like a man arriving somewhere he believed was already his. Elise sat beside him in a structured black dress, diamond earrings catching the light. They had the posture of people who expected good news. David Mercer entered at 9 o'clock and opened his folders without ceremony. "Under the revised terms of Ethan Hawthorne's estate," he began, "the sole controlling beneficiary of Hawthorne, logistics and all associated executive holdings, is Claire Hawthorne." The room went completely quiet. Marcus blinked once. Elise's expression shifted slowly, like someone trying to solve a problem they hadn't expected. Then Marcus laughed, short and dismissive. "Right," he said. "Okay." David didn't look up from the page. "Estate law rarely leaves room for humor, Mr. Bennett." Elise's color drained. Marcus grabbed the paperwork and moved through it quickly, eyes scanning frantically. "This isn't possible," he said. "Ethan wouldn't have done this." David folded his hands. He did, in fact. Then he reached for the remote beside him. A screen on the wall came to life, and my brother appeared, alive, sitting behind his office desk in the navy sweater I'd given him for his birthday 3 years ago. For one unbearable moment, I forgot how to breathe. "If you're watching this," Ethan said calmly, looking straight into the camera, "then David was right about how things would unfold after I was gone." Marcus slowly lowered himself back into his chair. Then Ethan looked directly forward. "Marcus, I know you've been taking from the company." Marcus went the color of paper. "And I know about you and Elise." Elise pressed her hand over her mouth. I closed my eyes for a moment. He had known everything, the affair, the theft, all of it, long before I did. "I kept quiet because I needed documentation," Ethan continued, "and because I needed my sister to be protected before any of this became public." Marcus erupted from his chair. "This was staged. This is manipulated." "Sit down," David said, without raising his voice. Marcus kept going, turning toward me, pointing. "She did this. She turned him against me." David opened another folder and waited until Marcus ran out of noise. "There's one additional matter," he said. Marcus stopped. "When you filed for divorce, you voluntarily signed a full marital asset waiver. You relinquished all future claims connected to Claire Hawthorne's holdings." I watched him understand it in real time. He had rushed through the divorce because he believed I had nothing worth waiting for. He believed Elise held the fortune. He believed he had traded up, but Ethan had left everything to me: the company, the investments, the executive authority, even the accounts Marcus had been quietly emptying. The future he and Elise had constructed together didn't exist. Then something unexpected happened. Elise stood, picked up her bag deliberately, and looked at Marcus the way someone looks at a mistake they've finally decided to stop making. "You told me the company was essentially yours already. Elise, don't know." And she walked out without another word. 9 days later, she had removed herself from his life entirely. That was the great love story that cost me my marriage. 9 days. Security escorted Marcus from the building after the meeting concluded. Outside on the street, reporters called out questions. while November wind pushed through downtown Chicago. I was moving toward the elevator when Marcus grabbed my arm. "You knew," he said. "No," I answered honestly. "I suspected." His voice cracked at the edges. "We could still fix this." I almost found that funny. "You moved into my brother's home 4 days after we buried him." "I made mistakes." "You were with his wife while he was still alive." He looked away from me. Then quietly, I said the thing that finally reached him. "You told me I wasn't built for the life you wanted." He stared without speaking. "I think you understand now who wasn't built for it." 3 days later, Hawthorne Logistics officially terminated him after internal investigators finished documenting financial fraud across several client accounts. Not a staggering amount, just enough stolen money to make him feel like someone important. That's what I've come to understand about people like Marcus. They confuse proximity to power with the actual thing. He thought standing close enough to remarkable people would make him remarkable too. It doesn't work that way. It never has. I spent the months that followed trying not to go under beneath the weight of what Ethan had left me. The fear was genuine, but grief does something to people, particularly to women who have been quietly underestimated for years. I started arriving before sunrise. I reviewed contracts until my eyes ached. I walked the warehouse floors and listened to the drivers and dispatchers the way Ethan always had, not performing interest but actually feeling it. Slowly, people began to trust me, not because I was exceptional at everything, because I was present and I cared about what happened to them. One afternoon, an older dispatcher stopped me near the loading bays and said something I still return to. "You know what separates you from Marcus?" "Tell me." "Marcus wanted the company to make him matter. You wanted to take care of people." That was the real inheritance Ethan left behind, not the money, the responsibility. A few months after that, Marcus appeared at my front door during a thunderstorm. I saw him through the glass before I opened it, standing under the porch light soaked through, looking like a version of himself that had been left in a drawer too long. The expensive clothes were gone. So was the certainty. "I have nothing left," he said the moment I opened the door. I looked at him quietly, not with satisfaction, but with the particular sadness of watching someone become a stranger you once loved. I was foolish. "Yes," I said softly. Then his voice lost its shape entirely. "I believed money would finally make me enough." That sentence settled between us because it was the truest thing he'd ever said to me. Beneath all the arrogance and, the scheming, Marcus had always been frightened of being ordinary. He had believed that wealth could dissolve that fear. It can't. Nothing can. He was crying now. Real tears, not performed ones. "Please," he whispered, "please give me one more chance." And there on my porch in the cold Illinois rain, Marcus Bennett dropped to his knees and begged for the life he had destroyed with his own careful, deliberate choices. But the moment I have never been able to set down wasn't his apology. It was what happened after. His eyes drifted past me and found the framed photograph above the fireplace. Ethan laughing, the three of us at Christmas years before any of this. Marcus stared at that picture, and the full measure of what he had thrown away seemed to finally arrive inside him all at once. After a long silence, I handed him an umbrella. "Go home, Marcus." His face fell completely, because I think he finally understood that he no longer had one. The company was gone. Elise was gone. His reputation was ash. Most of the people who'd surrounded him had vanished the moment his status did. He took the umbrella without speaking. "I never intended for it to go this way," he whispered. That sentence told me everything I needed to know. People like Marcus never cast themselves as the cause of their own disasters. They experience consequences as things that simply arrive, not as the accumulated result of choices they made freely, one selfish decision at a time. So instead of arguing, I gave him the plain truth. You kept choosing yourself over every person. Who trusted you? Then he walked back into the rain. I never saw him again. Months later, I heard through people we'd known in common that he had relocated to Indiana under a different name and taken a mid-level position in trucking sales after quietly settling the fraud investigation. Elise had moved to Arizona, still looking for someone else's life to step comfortably into, and me? I stayed. The company held. Then it grew. Later that year, we established the Ethan Hawthorne Foundation, providing scholarships for employees' children pursuing college or trade certification. The first recipient was a warehouse mechanic's daughter, who wanted to become a structural engineer. When I called to tell her the tuition was fully covered, she cried so hard she couldn't finish her sentences. After we hung up, I sat alone in my office looking out over the Chicago skyline and understood something I hadn't expected. For the first time since Ethan died, grief no longer felt like a hollow space inside me. It felt like it had been turned into something that mattered. 1 year later, I went to visit Ethan's grave on the first real snow of winter. I brought white lilies because he used to bring them to our mother every Easter without fail. Standing there in the quiet cold, I finally said the thing out loud that I had been carrying for a year. You were right. I trusted the wrong people for too long. But Ethan had given me something else alongside that lesson. I hadn't needed anyone to come rescue me. I had walked through it and come out the other side as someone I recognized. That's what people misunderstand about the idea of revenge. Real revenge isn't loud. It isn't a confrontation scene or a moment of visible humiliation. It's rebuilding yourself so thoroughly and so honestly that the people who tried to diminish you can no longer find the version of you they were counting on. It's continuing forward with integrity while they buckle under the weight of everything they chose. As I walked back across the snow toward my car, winter sunlight broke through the clouds and spread itself out across the cemetery in long, pale strips. And for the first time in longer than I could remember, the future didn't feel like something I had to brace myself against. It felt like something I had actually earned.